What's going on, guys? Magdallan here. I didn't have any intention of making a build guide for my Lightning Arrow Deadeye this league, but I've gotten a lot of questions in the YouTube comments and a lot of people messaging me in-game. And so I thought instead of trying to address each person individually, I would instead just throw together a quick and dirty build guide so that I can, just show the way that I have it set up in the hopes that maybe it'll help some folks out or entice some people to try out the build. I've had a fantastic time with it. It's gotten me through all the content that I wanted to do for the projects that I had planned for the YouTube channel. And it gives you an excuse to mess around with Vengeance Cascade, which who knows if that's going to be around next week. And so, big disclaimer, I'm not making the claim that this has the highest possible DPS. I don't care. It's not crit capped. I don't really mess around with POE very much. I don't care what the numbers are. It's not very tanky. I don't tend to play very tanky characters unless I'm specifically trying to do content that absolutely demands it. And there are probably some areas where the tree could be optimized or where the gear could be optimized. And I'm happy to hear any suggestions that people have in the comments, but rest assured, I've probably looked at most of the things out there that I could do to change the build up and make it more meta appropriate. And this is just the way that I have it set up that makes me happy, and maybe it'll make you happy too. And so as far as leveling is concerned, I started this as a Toxic Rain Ballista Pathfinder, and that worked pretty well for leveling, but it just wasn't a build I wanted to play in the long term. And so at about week 1.5, something like that, maybe 8 or 9 days into the league, I pivoted into this build, and since then I've made quite a few changes to it. So if you're going to level it yourself now from scratch, I would probably recommend trying to start that way, or maybe try Hollow Palm, something like that, and then just go ahead and respec into Lightning Arrow once you get established in maps. And of course, you're going to want to kill all of the bandits, and here is my pantheon. I'm doing Lunaris and Maximum Lazy. I haven't upgraded any of that. And then we are running Soul of Aberath for the Burning Ground immunity, pretty standard. I tend to almost exclusively do red altars, and so if you're like me, that's the obvious choice. And now let's take a look at the tree. So we're going to come through here, and grab Ballistics, and then come down through Heart of Oak, grab Primal Spirit, Finesse, and Quick Step. We're going to come on through, grab the life here, swing down this way, and fill out this Elemental Mastery cluster here. And then we're going to grab Entrench, as well as Long Shot, some life here. Grab that mastery as well. Very nice if you were using this chest piece. And then we're going to grab Farsight. And we will come on up here and grab Master Fletcher. And grab this mastery here. And then we're going to grab this mastery as well, although I don't think this is well optimized. I don't even know if it's worth the point. It's just what I threw in there. A little bit more damage. And we're going to grab Piercing Shots there. We're going to grab Heartseeker as well as Acuity. Some life here. Then we're going to grab our Inspired Learning in this slot. And we are going to take Aspect of the Lynx so that we can activate that. And then we have Inveterate. And then we're going to come up here and grab Multi-Shot. And I don't know if I pointed these ones out over here. I don't think that I did. Revenge of the Hunted, as well as Excess Sustenance. And then Charisma over here with the Mastery for auras from your skills have 10% increased effect. And then lastly, here is my Large Cluster Jewel. And here are the two mediums. Watcher's Eye here. And then just a random damage jewel. I picked this up quite a while ago. Could be upgraded. It's not very well optimized, but works just fine for me. And that is essentially the tree. Pretty straightforward. You could, of course, go up here and do the Lion Eyes thing and get more crit. You could get a Headhunter and then not need the Inspired Learning. You could grab the jewel that lets you skip a bunch of the travel nodes. All of that stuff. You could certainly do that if that is to your taste. It was not to mine, and so this is what I have done. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the gear. Standard gloves and Vol's Vision helmet to sustain the Rage tech. First time I've done anything like that. I don't know if this just came out this league or if it was around last league or not, but Feels pretty good. I enjoy it. For the belt here, we're just going to grab some strength and then just some general stats to fill stuff out. Always nice to have the increased elemental damage with attacks on there. Boots, we've just got some strength and life, and then a little bit of movement speed and some resistances to fill stuff out. Rarity roll is always nice. For rings, I've got this one that I've had for an age at this point. I think I got this sometime in week 2. And obviously that fire damage roll as well as the maximum energy shield roll is not ideal. But again, it's worked for me. You could certainly get a much better ring than that. And then, as I already showed, we're using a Hiri's Ire for the chest piece. And we're going to run 1 taming ring. There is my quiver, just a bunch of damage rolls on there. Additional arrow as well. I don't know how big of a deal the additional arrows are for lightning arrow, but I figured may as well just throw it on there. At the time, I don't remember exactly what I spent on this, but it was relatively affordable. For the amulet, Hiri's Truth. We're going to get our precision from that, which helps us keep our hit chance at 100, and then can't go wrong with Culling Strike. And then lastly, here is the bow that I'm currently using. This one's got about 2300 elemental DPS, and I spent quite a bit on this. I think almost 100 divine, might have been 100, and this works really well. It is not necessarily the ideal base type, but I like the movement speed on there. And I did not need the cold resistance, but again, always nice to have. Gives me a little bit of flexibility with the other gear if I want to upgrade stuff later on. You could go with a bow that is more like this one. And I did in fact use this for all the videos preceding this one. The footage at the very beginning of this video, I was using this bow. But for just about everything else I've done since the beginning of the league, I was using this bow. And this one has, I think, 1200 or 1300 LE DPS. And the tree has just some lightning damage, a little bit of crit, and then this mana node that helped me even things out a little bit. And just real quick, I don't know if I mentioned that I took these mana nodes here when I was going over the tree. You may or may not need these, and I'm not 100% sure that I still need them. They may be slightly wasted points, but the mana is definitely useful, particularly earlier on. And that is about it for the gear. Let's take a look at the flasks real quick. Corrupted blood immunity on the life flask. And then evasion rating on the jade. And then elemental resistance on the quartz flask. And I'll explain why that is here in just a moment. And then I'm using a Cinder Swallow urn with 25% reduced mana cost of skills during effect. And then a little bit of mana recovery on there. And then pretty standard Quicksilver flask with some crit on there. And now let's go over the gems. So in our main damage setup, we've got Awakened Elemental Damage with attacks, Trinity, Anomalous Inspiration. The quality on that gives you increased critical strike chance. And as I mentioned at the beginning, I haven't really stacked very much crit on the build. And so it's nice to get a little bit extra there. And then we've got added lightning damage, Mirage Archer, and there's our lightning arrow. And real quick, I'll also show the tree on my bow. Lightning damage, increased attack speed, and reduced global. Increased effective onslaught, and then the 15% increased explicit elemental damage modifier magnitudes. In our gloves, I have a Mana Forged Arrows set up. So elemental damage with attacks, anomalous Mana Forged Arrows, Inspiration, and Ice Shot. This was an upgrade. I have to give Arrow some credit. He told me that Ice Shot was just a better build all around, and I can't confirm or deny that. I haven't played it. But I noticed that he had made a video where he was extolling the virtues of Chill and Freeze as a defensive mechanic. And that got me inspired to try and maybe work it in with the Mana Forged Arrows, and it actually is a huge defensive boon to my version of the build, which is otherwise very squishy. So this was a really fun, very nice and fluid addition to the build that I'm really happy I experimented with. In the helmet, I have Sniper's Mark with Mark on Hit, and then a Portal Gem, and then our Anger. And then in the chest piece, another Mana Forged Arrows setup. We've got Inspiration, Mana Forged Arrows, Frenzy, Power Charge on crit, and increase critical strikes, and that'll help us keep our power charges pretty much up all the time. And then I just 5-linked this so that I could have an extra slot, and that is where I slot in my Vol Haste gem. And then lastly, in the boots, we've got Frost Blink and Berserk, and then down here, Blink Arrow and Purity of Elements. 2 other shout-outs. My buddy Pope Jupiter was the one that actually said, hey, you should just use Blink Arrow and Frost Blink, and it actually does feel really good. It's nice if you can work both of those in. You can really zoom across the map pretty quickly, especially if you take a death and don't have a portal ready. You can get back to where you were really quickly. Feels very fluid, very nice. And then you may be interested in looking at J-War's version of this build. He has some pretty cool cast on crit tech that he smashed in there that seemed to really amp up his single target damage. So if you're interested in that, certainly check out his videos on the topic. All right, last thing here, I'll just throw in a map real quick and show you how that works. You'll see I do not have Purity of Elements on. I tend to switch between them. It's nice to have both available. I like to run Haste as often as possible, but if I'm having trouble, you can just switch it around and have the immunity to ailments. And my res is capped if that's active. But of course, if I turn that off, it will not be capped. And in that case, that is where the flask comes in and keeps everything capped for us. And in case anybody's wondering, real quickly here, I'll just show the offensive stats for Lightning Arrow there. There we are. Jump into this map quick and I'll show you how it runs. I tend to just have my Lightning Arrow bound to my 2 key, and then I just use the mouse button to move around. Pretty fluid. And we'll just come through here real quick. Open this Legion up so you can see how it does with those. Most of the time, I just kind of run around once, and then the Legion starts, but occasionally, you get a mob that's a little stubborn, or perhaps I just don't see it, and so then it takes a second for the thing to open. There we go. So pretty straightforward there. And we'll just clear out the rest of this. Little section up here. What do we got on this altar? We'll go and click that one. And then we'll run down here. And real quickly, we'll just take out the boss. Single target is okay. There we go. Alright, I think we've pretty much got this cleared out. Alright, and that's a map. And I mean, basically that is all I've got for you guys. The build has performed really well for me. I farmed up quite a bit of currency, did several different strategies with it, and it performed pretty well for all of that. The super juiced Crimson Temple Strongbox thing was a little bit rough, but that was before I got quite a few upgrades to the character, so I'd have to get back in there and test it again to see how frequently I die now. So in that case, I was, 2, 3, sometimes 4 portaling the maps. But most of the time now I die, once every 3 or 4 maps, something like that. So it's not a tank build. You're going to die sometimes, but not really a huge deal. And so yeah, if you found anything interesting or engaging in the video, please do give me a like and subscribe, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. I appreciate you.